Just taking a tour of all my L wrenches. This will be hex keys, Torx, and basically L wrenches that are not square drive for socketry. I think we'll start with this drawer over here. I have 2 drawers of these, so I recently got a snap-on road box or portable tool chest, and I've been reorganizing some of my tools. Used to have 3/8 in this drawer. I have this old set of Great Neck. The only reason I keep these is because they are an old school made in USA set, so it's for nostalgia. I had a bunch of these Bond husks. What we have here is we have both the ball end T-handles as well as the non-ball end. The ones that are not ball end are also shorter than ones that have the ball end. The ball ends are very convenient, but they are more likely to strip out fasteners just because that little ball there, come on camera, just has less surface area of engagement, and they also themselves can break because of that little neck down area, but they're super handy for running things in and out. And so I ended up getting both sets, more of a heavy duty set that isn't ball, and once again the ball sets, metric and fractional. I had the trays, but they're kind of, unless you have a bunch of shop table space, the big issue with these welded T-handles is that they're just bulky and awkward because they're long, they have angles going in 2 different directions, so they just use up a bunch of space. So this is the best way I was able to organize it and have a little bit of space in the drawer for them to get jumbled up. I also have the Torx versions. They are not, as far as I know, any ball end Torx drivers just because of how easily they'd strip out. I have these Titan sets, which is just bent wire sets. They're not very good at all, but they were like on sale or something, so I bought them just to make a review. To get them out of the way here. Anyway, I have other sets of L wrenches. We have Bond Huss standard length, as well as the stubbies. I really like the stubbies. Of course, you can grind down any normal L wrench to make it as stubby as you want, but it's neat that Bond Huss has both sets, and they're reasonably priced. I have one of my oldest sets here, which are these Chescos, which were made by Bond Huss, and it explains. I've had these Chescos for probably, I got them when I had a bicycle. They were like, and I think I got them like a Kroger's or something, when Kroger's actually had some pretty decent tools. And they've lasted, and so it's nice to have those set of Chescos. I have one set of metric Elkins, and then what I have is a vintage set of Bond Huss. And the difference between modern Bond Huss and vintage is the modern Bond Husses are a little bit longer, but the ball ends on these classic ones are really, really smooth, really well machined. And if we really take a close look at the more modern ones, come on camera, there we go, they're just not quite as smooth. There's like a little flat right in the middle. These don't seem to be made, even a Bond Huss hex key aren't built like they used to be, that's for sure. And those are valve seat wrenches for faucets, and since they're an L-type wrench, I decided to keep them in here. Both styles, one's a taper and one's a stepped. Technically, the stepped ones are better because they offer full engagement, where of course a taper only engages in the upper portion of a straight hole that you're putting it in, but they can also be very tight. So it's I just decided to have them both since I found them both. Here's this drawer, and this is my really old school my toolbox that has been trusty for a long time. Canadian made, pretty cheap tool chest, but man, it's held up. It's flimsy, but it hasn't failed. Easiest way to say it. I do have some random little straight drivers. I actually have this old school WIA, and I'm kind of want to find some more of these, which are just little, not drivers, but for hex keys. I have some random larger ones. I have these kind of stubby L wrench style Torx, and they're only a 6-piece set, but they went up to surprisingly large sizes, which I thought might be handy in some situations where I have to use a cheater bar or a box wrench or something. Do have this neat magnetic set from Napa, which is pseudo. When they advertise these, they advertise as security Torx L wrenches. Come on, camera. I don't know my camera and focusing on dark objects. Anyway, a hole in the middle for security Torx, but they're magnetic, so on the long end they have magnets stuffed in the holes, so they're you can only use them when you need that amount of reach to break the fastener. But the hilarious thing is you can break a security Torx, but then you can't insert the end of it, the magnetic end of it, in to spin them out quickly. So I thought that was a little bit of an oversight. I just have some of these, a couple of these Titan like folding key things. They were just basic, I think, for cheap, more impulse buys. I do have these Allen folding key sets. I like these because they had the orange, the green, and the blue sets, metric, standard, and Torx, and they're just easy to pick out of a toolbox. Anyway, I like the brightly colored. These are just a couple of Elkin. They're another big purveyor. That's where I knew Elkin from, is these folding hex keys. I do have, these are like the nice Titan powder coated L wrenches, and I remember seeing that, oh, they're on the shelf again, but they have different packaging and like a sticker for the name. There's actually a sticker on both of these, but instead of the more concentrated folded up version, it was just a wide version. But they seem to be a little bit cheaper. If we notice on these, it's a satin finish, where on the OG ones it's a chrome finish or polished finish, and the powder coating on the older one seems to be thicker than it is on the newer ones. So they actually changed production on them, and I impulse bought them because that's when I saw that Titan had this giant set of pin and socket both ends, and they're extra long. This is actually one of my favorite sets of Torx L wrenches, and just like the powder coating because they're easy to see, easy to find, and give you a little bit of texture to grip onto. I don't believe they had the Torx version in these old school styles. I think it was just the fractional and metric on the old school ones. Let's see here. Moving over here, I have what are these? Oh, these are the Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had these folding Torx L wrench sets. One is a larger size, one is smaller sizes, and I picked those up a long time ago. I have some random Torx L wrenches, which I think were my first set, and then I end up getting this Power Torx set from O'Reilly's Auto Parts just because the handles were a little bit longer. And then over here is individual pieces of L wrenches. This happens to be in just an ultra long handle, 1/2 inch. You can get all sorts of handle links in these. I will pull this bad boy out. This is my biggest L wrench, and that is a 25.4 millimeter. This is a 1-inch hex key, and you know, I have that. Surprisingly enough, it's not like big machine fasteners that I've run into needing these large hex keys on. There's like transmission access plugs and things like that where they'll use big hex females, and so you need a big hex wrench to get them out. And so this is my fractional set from, we've got a 1-inch. Actually, I think I set down to, what is this? I can't even see. Maybe I can see on the camera if it, this dang camera, whatever, folks. No, this is another fraction. That's a 7/8. It's a genuine Allen brand. Then I have 3/4 inch, so all like larger than 1/2 inch sizes. And this little wrench, which I think was made to drive some sockets, but I just put it in here anyway, just because I thought, wouldn't it be cool if they made L wrenches like this, where they had series of them with just knurled handles? I think that would have been actually a really good idea. I mean, the thinking is, because it's a hex key, you kind of got those angles anyway to spin it with, but still, I'd love to have a nice chrome set of knurled handled ones. I guess we'll travel over here where I've got some of these. These are more for like electronic technicians, is where you see what I know them as flag type drivers, but I do have the Bondhus Torx set. Then I have a couple of WIA, and then this one's actually kind of interesting. I think you can just see that, but that's a Mitsubishi. I thought that's a rare brand for tools. Just have some random ones like this oddball hex key that has a super long stem on it. It was for assembling something. And so these are my large metric sizes, plus some random individual Bondhus metric ones. But here I have all these different metric sizes, and the reason they're kind of spotty like this is I have some oddball sizes that you just don't see in L wrenches here. This happens to be a 9mm. That's a 7mm. I know it's one of the rare snap-on L wrenches. I have 11mm ones and a couple different size arm lengths. And you don't run into them often, but those are because they're so infrequent, you never see 7, 9, and 11mm ones. But man, if you run into one of those fasteners, you're sure going to want one. Other than that, a couple of like old school junky, I don't even know where these came from, but the only reason I have them is they're not manufactured the best, and they have slight variations in their tolerances versus like the Bond Husses and many of these others I have in here, which are like super precise, thousandths of an inch of nominal size. But what I found with these is, especially on the smaller ones, is sometimes that missizing results in one of the wrenches actually fitting really tight compared to others. And with the tiny little grub screws and stuff, that's really what you want. This is an oddball 8-point. I don't know what it's for, but when I saw it, I thought it was unique. And then this is a whole set from tiny all the way up. And I discovered what these wrenches were for, and then I've already forgot, but they're a spline drive type L wrench. And I think it's associated with some kind of General Motors product is where you run into those. But I've been collecting these up. I found some random larger ones, and I found a whole set of the smaller ones. But I thought, whatever those splines are, if you run into them, I mean, there's no other way to get them out besides that. And then down here is a plain set of Elkin, but it was a master set, and that's why I have it, even though I obviously have other duplicates. And that's this lowers. This is 3/4 inch. This is a huge, like 25-piece Elkin set, fractional, but it just had every size right on down. You can see my finger. That smallest wrench is 0.9mm. I forget what size fractional that is, but it just had all these super tiny little sizes all the way up through 3/4 inch, no skips. And I thought, I've never seen a set of L wrenches that was this comprehensive before, so that's why I have them in here. It's just pretty incredible. These I think I got from Napa, so they're interleaved just because they were in a bag, and the bags were both torn. So I have fractional and metric kind of alternating as they step down. But these are another rare one. These are pin and socket security hex versus the Torx. Same on both ends. And so that's the deal with these guys, even the smallest ones. Come on, camera. There we go. See that? So pin and socket security hex keys. So I thought that was kind of interesting. There'd be some situations where you just couldn't get 1/4 inch drive bits, where I usually have security bits is the 1/4 inch hex, excuse me. So I thought it's kind of interesting to have fractional and metric, or standard and metric pin and socket security hex L keys for some of those situations where they're the only thing that fits. And so that's a tour of my hex keys and L wrenches. And I sure do have a ton of them there, or a variety more to get, especially in the departments of extra long handle ones. But those sets get pretty expensive. And I could use hex keys in the little flag type drivers too. That would be interesting. And I'll eventually do something like that. But of course, how I initially build up tools is I just focus, unless it's super cheap, I focus on getting the variety, like having the large hex key L wrenches is, having a large L wrench that happens to get the job done, remove the fasteners, better than not having the L wrench and just not being able to do the work. So it's always been the variety first, and then expanding on nicer tools, kind of like getting these powder-coated Titan ones. They're really long arm, I like that, but they're also pretty, so they're kind of like my pretty tools. I know Titan, a company that I really don't like their warranty service on and always talk crap about. I still own a number of their tools. Anyway, really appreciate you watching. See you next time.